All right. Greetings, everyone. Back for the start of the week's Forge chat. Hope everyone had a good weekend. Forge chat and tavern chat are two different things. Tavern chats are, as of now, Wednesday night. It's usually a topic I throw out on gaming and some of the finest minds in gaming, which are my friends and viewers, pop on to chat about their experiences as it relates to that topic. The Forge chats are just me working on a game or game-related materials. In this case, Tales of the Harrowed Land, which is the game that I am currently writing for publication this time next year. And if you are following me on Twitch, you know where to find me. But if you're watching this on YouTube, please drop over to Twitch and subscribe there. And that would be absolutely great. You can participate in the chats real time. And if you are not subscribed or if you haven't hit the follow button yet, I actually get quite a few viewers every stream. A lot of them have not subscribed. It would be great if you could. It helps me a lot. And the same thing if you're viewing this on YouTube. Don't be afraid to, if you're viewing this on Twitch, don't be afraid to go over and subscribe to YouTube as well. Everything that's going on as far as my content development is at foxandboardgames.com. That includes my game and will be several other games. More and more exciting news coming up on all of those gaming fronts, hopefully within the next month. And of course, Twitter and Facebook, social media, Fox and Board Games. I really thank everybody for tuning in. Please continue to keep watching, keep talking. Follow the channels. That really helps me make this more than just a thing that I think about doing to a thing that I can do and do regularly. So as of right now, writing a game is my job. And I've never thought I'd get to say that in my life. So it's really exciting. And I'm doing this to share it with you, to keep it accountable. If you're just lurking, feel free to say hi in the chat, but don't feel obligated to do so. This will be my last Monday chat for 2 weeks. There's a hopeful chance I will actually be away traveling the next 2 weeks. And that is all entirely contingent on how airlines are doing and how our flight is. There we go. So we're still on this section, creating a hero. So last week I was kind of contextualizing a lot of the extraneous rules, gifts, skills, all kinds of abilities. Just, oh, hey, how's it going? How's it going, Andy? Good to see you. Yeah, feel free to lurk. No worries. I think a couple other people are on here lurking too. I know a couple people like to tune in and listen, but are busy and can't really chat a whole lot, which is fine. So last week I kind of got all the core rules into one document, and this week is fleshing it out. I started that yesterday, Saturday night and yesterday, sitting out in the nice excessive heat of the summer and typing and grilling. Not bad. But what I realized as I was going through this is that the descriptions were kind of all over the place. Like, for one of the cultures, I would talk about their politics first. Then I would talk about their physical makeup. And then I would talk about, what gifts they had. So it was, more of my notes. Because, again, this has evolved over close to 3 years of writing now. Going on 3 years of writing. So a lot of what I've been doing is just piecing notes together as I have ideas. And then presenting it to groups orally and chatting about how to move things ahead, but still in this note form. Now I've got to get it together. Get it together and present something that is coherent, that people can actually read and follow. I'll close out some of these windows and some other stuff open. One of the things I've had to do in addition to the descriptive text is I'm getting cat bombed. This cat's been hiding all morning. I guess he just decided to come out and visit. Cat bombing in progress. Is which each culture has certain gifts and skills that they're good at and they get a bonus on. They have extra points to spend on them. So I think this helps give a little bit of difference in terms of which culture you pick. It's not just cosmetic. But at the same time, I didn't want it to be like a race in old school D&D, right? I didn't want it to be, oh, I'm a dwarf, I can't be a magic user, right? I mean, again, that's a very old school way of looking at it. I understand why the early editions of the game may have functioned like that. Oh, my camera's not on. You're not seeing the cat bombing. There we are. Cat bombing. So, I understand why the earlier versions of the game had those in place. It was this artificial kind of sense of balance, but I'm glad they don't do it anymore. I'm glad games have evolved beyond that. In fact, this game is classless. Well, you could say it's classless on several counts, but it's really classless in terms that there's no character class. And of course, I'm going to have kits that people can kind of come up with. Actually, I had a friend over working on some music stuff, and I out in the heat talking. So I'm hoping it's just that. These cats are suddenly being very interactive. I was about to see a giant cat head move in front of the screen. Cat, you go. Their feeding times are between 4:30 and 5, and every day they try to move it up by half an hour. So now we get to the Suat. Skillfully remove a cat from my workspace. This is what you're really here for, the cat content. Come on, don't climb back there. So another word for invisible. As usual, I'll make my joke that half the time you're watching me work, you're watching me look up synonyms and naming references online, or switch between documents 2/3 of the time. Let's see. I want to call these people not invisible people. That has another connotation already in another culture. But I don't think calling them the microscopic or imperceptible or inconspicuous or unseeable Well, seeable's not the worst, right? I don't know what that word actually, how that word actually translates. Perdu. Right, it's French, you know that. For dispersed or lost, that actually really fits. I don't know about using a French word. That doesn't make sense. Not for this context. The shadow people. So the story behind this culture is that they experienced a diaspora when their continent empire, fell beneath the waves. So yes, there's a bit of Atlantean resonance going on there. That these are the people who survived that and moved off to the main continent from that. Cross-reference the actual history. Welcome to the few people who have joined in and are lurking about. I appreciate it. Let me take a look at my other notes. Hey, there's Neil. Lurking. Lurking. Do you have your arms crossed so nobody can see you? Are you obfuscated? I guess I could have called the sweat the lurkers, but that gives a different connotation than to a shadow or a hidden culture. Yep, any Nosferatu con. Even when I played my Nosferatu pen and paper in Diana's game last year, I was, out of instinct, I was doing that. Well, Malkavians can do it too. So my other task this weekend is I got a bunch of notes together for Joe, the artist who's been doing the work here, and he's in a really kind of prestigious program right now, studying with a really famous artist and art teacher. So he's not actually doing the game art specifically for about another 6 to 8 months, but he's going to be incorporating some of the imagery into his projects there, so that's kind of cool. Okay, not the document I was looking for. Definitely not the droids I was looking for either. Interviewed a potential faculty member this morning who is in the running to teach my classes while I'm gone. There's all the Star Wars action figures in the background. We're like, oh, well, he'll probably fit. There we go. Hey, there's Bobicus. How's Bobicus doing? How's your game stuff going? Yeah, it's not a bad gig. My ongoing joke, 15-year-old me would never have imagined I'd be paid to sit home and write a role-playing game. And a lot of the faculty members were really into it too. Even if they didn't fully get it, they just thought it was such a cool idea. Somebody was doing this and doing a lot of actual research, real world research to base some of the cultures and some of the places on. Oh, look, my bot's working. Just in case. Mutilated my text a little bit. I'll have to go fix that. I set up and someone was like, you should have a bot just like tell people where to find your stuff. Like, not a lot. Once every 20 minutes. I'm going to change that because I think I'd actually set it. Make sure I haven't set it. It's like every 5 minutes because I find that annoying if I'm in a stream. Let's see. Am I still logged in? Yes. Hello, Mr. Bot. Apparently I can also set up to take song requests. Okay. Okay, so let me just edit this. Every 5 minutes now. Let's not do every 5 minutes. Let's do every 20 minutes. Yeah, I really screwed up my text formatting too. Oh well, I dropped it in from another document. There. So it's not too obnoxious. All right, I think that works. Not too obnoxious, like me. Yeah, using Fate Accelerated. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like I said, I haven't looked a lot at Fate. Neil, who is lurking on here, is a fan of Fate. He's the fellow I have mentioned, has talked to me quite a bit about Fate and some of these kind of newer alternative systems that in some ways change what role playing is and how it's managed. And Deep with Sahagin. I always was kind of thrilled with the Sahagin. They were always kind of like Lovecraft's deep ones to me, but then the Kuatoans came out. Oh no, they're the deep ones. They're exactly the deep ones. Invoke and compels aspects of a faction. Right, and does it have, and I don't really know the Fate system, but does it have a tangible effect in the game? So that's something I've worked on with this. So characters have a Fate score. And what the Fate score does is it gives you points to spend. So you don't die and other horrible things don't happen, like in our Warhammer game. Garrison, thanks for the follow. Garrison just gave me a follow. I see that. I got derailed because I was thinking, like in our Warhammer game the other night when we almost all died and we had to spend all of our points to avoid it. Thanks, Neil. You can accept the compel. That's right. I remember Neil talking a little bit about this. Gain a Fate token. Okay. So I was using the word Fate. I'm glad I could be of assistance. Yeah. Yeah. I'll refrain from my normal explicatives. Yeah. So the Fate. It's funny. I was using the term Fate. I used the term Fate originally, and I've been calling it Fortune ever since. And then I changed it back to Fate when I realized that's what I had written, but I'm thinking of calling it Fortune. But Fortune basically is how you shortcut the game. But it also is going to do something similar long-term to how you're describing your factions. That's where that whole tirade came from. My usual slightly ADD hypertext mind. So the factions could be influenced by the manipulation of these Fate points then? Is that what you're thinking? It sounds pretty cool to me, even though I don't really know the system that well. Well, so that's always the issue though, right? Whenever you have those mechanisms in place, like at what point does it become meta? And I mean, that is a thing. And that's something I've even encountered. I mean, you encounter it in all games. I'm just going to adjust this a little bit. You encounter it in all games. But yeah, when you have a social system like that in place, that's kind of one of the hazards you have, or any kind of faction system, or even combat or spell systems. Like how much of it can be gamed. I mean, it's game. That's part of it, right? Like in our private group, Neil's part of it. Blake, who's lurking, is part of it. We've talked a lot about, so at what point, right, all games, at what point does player agency become system mastery, and where does the reward for system mastery diverge from rules-oriented resolution to rules manipulation? And again, I don't know. I don't have a great answer to that right at this moment. But I think that's a really good point. That thing is still screwing up my text formatting. Nightbot, what are you doing to me? Pretty soon it'll be like, oh, I'm just going to start doing this to your channel. Like how? I don't know why that link won't work the way that it formatted it. That's why. Never mind. That was my fault. Sorry. I need the HTTP. I had a whole discussion about web design in the interview this morning with a prospective instructor. Let's see. Let's see if that works. Games, I gotta see. Yeah, I know. So Neil, by the way, has an encyclopedic knowledge of game systems, just so you know. So he's the guy I actually talked to. Like, do you know of a game that does something like this? He's usually the person I would ask first. Wow. Too general? No, yeah, I understand that. That's where I'm at with my Fate or Fortune. Maybe I'll be rebranding it as Fortune. Fortune system, Fate system right now it's kind of, parts of it are kind of ambiguous in terms of how it's going to actually function. Like, I have some guidelines, but I'm afraid it's not clear enough. No, not Empirical City. Autocorrect. Though an Empirical City could be interesting. Yeah. All right. Now it's not only still not formatting, but it is in fact basically spamming. I'd hate to have to kill you, Nightbot. And disable it for the moment and try to edit it some more later. Maybe if I increase that. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'll have to live with that. All right, I'll submit those revisions. disable it and enable it. If that doesn't work, I'm just going to shut it off for now and delete it and remake it later. Okay. So this culture, the Suat, I keep saying, oh, they claim to have come from this place. I mean, part of it's that it's literally been lost to history, but I don't want to make them sound like that they are, like used car salesmen. Though quite funny enough, this is the ethnicity of the merchant that Andy played in one of the first play tests, and he played him kind of like a used car salesman, and that was kind of funny. It was a very un-Andy-like character who's out there lurking today. All right. I'm going to go down the rabbit hole of editing another document. I need to stop and just get back to this one. So. Yeah, because that link's a mess. So I'm just going to delete those. Thanks to other folks who are tuning in. Welcome. Right now I'm fighting with Nightbot over here because it keeps spamming, and it's not only spamming, but it's giving a mutated link there that's not working. That's what I get for having robots try to do my job, right? Haven't we learned anything from science fiction? I tested it the other night and it seemed to work. Now, of course, I have people watching. It's not working. Anyway. Let's see. Claim to have once ruled a great island empire far to the south that sunk beneath the waves before even the time of the infestation. So anyone that's out there, just let's see. Yeah, Nightbot, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm slowly figuring that out. It's the first time using a bot on Twitch. So I am starting to see that. But it also was doing it every 5 minutes, even though I had reset it to 20 minutes. So I just disabled it, reformatted it, and re-enabled it. And I believe it should be okay now. I guess we're going to find. The Nightbot hasn't been given a chance to kill me yet. So what do you guys think about knowing... viewers, not necessarily guys, viewers know about or think about knowing the background of a world before you start playing it for the first time? Like, how important is it for you to know a lot of the history and backstory? How much information as a player should you have up front? Obviously, the game master should probably know a little bit more. But as a player, how much do you feel is necessary to have illustrated to you up front? I'm curious to find out. Because it's a tension point. Like, I want a person reading about a culture to get the nuance of the culture, to get the basic history of the culture, but then I don't want it to be they have to read 4 pages of text before deciding which character to play. 5 pages before deciding which character to play, what type of character to play. So I think I'm sort of at a weird tension point. Like, how much do I put up front? So my friend that was just here was saying that she wishes she could. She's a longtime gamer, as long as myself and some others. She was just saying, I wish your chats. She works Wednesday nights. I wish your chats weren't on Wednesday. And I said, well, I'm going to be staggering. I said, I'm doing the work sessions, but I'm also going to be staggering tavern chats. I'll probably, once fall hits, after these next few weeks, and I kind of get into a different routine, I'll probably have another tavern chat at another point. Let's see. Best you can do is full background not necessary because I don't really know the full background of the world. Right. Yeah. Okay. I need to build my character into the setting. I strongly like playing Forgotten Realms 5e because I know nothing about the Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. So like Blake's setting his game in Forgotten Realms. And I really like I know Forgotten Realms, so I've been playing D&D a ridiculously long time. But I don't know as much as I do about some of the other worlds and some of the other game settings for different games. So it's kind of cool also having a lot of it be fresh to me. So I kind of agree with that. The Flaming Fist. We've had all these ridiculous order and cult names in these various games, including Tales of the Hallowed Land, like the Copper Claw, as Blake says, the Claw. We had, what do we have, the Crimson? I forget what the different Chaos Cult symbols were. The Jade Scepter, I remember that. Right? Well, start small. Well, that's what I'm doing is I'm thinking the Red Crown, the Jade Scepter. Right. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give enough information in each of the cultural descriptions of like where your character would fit into the world. And then obviously in the overseer section, what I call the game master in this game, you'd have your, 20 pages of world history. Or maybe not even. Again, so this history is intentionally manipulated on my part so that it's kind of got that parts of it are lost feel, one, so that I didn't have to write, 60,000 words of just world history right up front, that people could just play the game. They wouldn't have to read it. And two, so it gave me room to kind of fill it in and elaborate later on. So now I'm obsessing over switching fate to fortune. I'm actually have to change a bunch of documents, but it might make more sense. All right, I think I just got myself a little segue there. Tomb of Annihilation. Oh my. Oh, here's your first game scenario. Catch the member of the Flaming Fist. Oh, there you go. Right, and that's actually a really cool way to integrate a character into an existing setting. We've done that a little bit in both the D&D game and in other games I've played, where the best way is to kind of give a new character a mission or a task. But Tomb of Annihilation, that's a rough way to start 5e. Here you go. I mean, it's right in the title, right? They're not trying to hide anything from you about how this is going to go. Now I'm in the rabbit hole of fate versus fortune. I'm going to look something up. Synonyms for fate. Since it's already so commonly used in a whole system. None of those words work. Keep hitting me with French synonyms, which I don't have a problem with, but it's just weird that there are these pretty common words and there's randomly a French word in thesaurus.com. Okay. Oh, that's where that word comes from. That's pretty cool. But I think it's a little too much for this particular usage. No, I know. I actually haven't. I've read some of the new Tomb of Annihilation. I played the old Tomb of Horrors, which it was based off of, and it was. I mean, that was one module, but that was just murderous. But I know Tomb of Annihilation. I've read through some of it, but I haven't actually played through any of it. So I haven't played a lot of 5e. I've run a lot of 5e, and in fact, I'm looking forward for that reason for Blake to run 5e for our online group. But I've played hours of. No, as bad as Tomb of Horrors, so that's good to hear. I think we did Tomb of Horrors once. We had like 3 characters going in, and I think there were like 6 players, and I think like 2 characters total made it out. It was just insane. I mean, it was a meat grinder. You knew it. White Plume Mountain was only slightly less horrific than that. All right, so the skills are pretty good. Sharpen sense, fortunate. All right, we'll pull up that fun and exciting gift list again. Quick descriptions. think giving them adept might be useful too. It's fortunate even still a gift. Yes. Alphabetical helps. Sharpened senses only costs 1, so I can't give that away for free. Oh, cat bombed again. Really? Someone can actually get that gift now. Okay, that wasn't really a culture that made sense. But now that I've revised them a little bit, Waterborne makes sense. This was happening during my work meeting earlier today, too. It was quite hilarious. It decided to climb all over me. Typing is difficult. Cat. There, sit there. Yeah. Cat bombing. It's a whole hour before feeding time. They're afraid they're gonna starve to death. The dogs here are laying next to me too. Yes, I know you're there. So did you actually, Bobicus, did you actually kill the other guy eventually, or did he kill you? Or was it not that dramatic in the end? See, I think anyone I give a magic gift to as possible starter actually got less of something else. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I got 6. The best thing I've done so far is to sit down and just list all the gifts out in one document. It's been so much easier to manage. All right. This week's Tavern Chat is going to be about character cultures. I'm working on cultures, so I thought it was appropriate. Not necessarily character races, because that's different, but what within a character race and in a fantasy RPG could give it unique sense of culture. And we talked about this a little bit in the fantasy races talk, where, what role do these races serve? What's their origin? Mythologically, literarily. But now let's talk about the cultures that make up the backbone of these races and what makes them truly different. Besides having pointy ears or beards or being better at axes or bows, right? That's kind of a superficial way to treat all this. Bill. Hey, Bill, just saw you were lurking on Steam. Thanks for joining us. So unfortunately, it was not an easy fix. Yeah, that sounds like what happens here usually. I mean, at least they got out there today, especially because it's the hottest week of the year so far, or almost. So at least hopefully they can fix your refrigerator. Someone else is asking me for the link. Sure. I think it's Fran. Cat's been quite silly today. All right, so back to this. So that was the Suat. That was actually easier than I thought it was going to be. Of course, I did several of these yesterday, so I guess now I'm kind of just in a zone. I'm going to go down to the Fate trait because now it's bugging me. It didn't dawn on me. You know, there was a Fate system, but I was like, oh, yeah, there's a whole component of the game called Fate. Not that this is an uncommon use or word, but still. What's a hero? Maybe I can come up with another word. Little, actually academically based game convention. That I was at. They made up a game emulating being in a Roman Senate meeting, and everybody had a trait called gravitas, and that's how important you were in Roman society, and that was really cool. It almost felt like a vampire LARP, like, you know, you knew somebody with a 4 gravitas was like an elder, and you had to almost be afraid of them when you were interacting. And it was kind of an educational game they were testing out for teaching Roman history, which is kind of cool because I had demoed a board game there from another company that was kind of the same thing about the forum. But it was really interesting. The word gravitas, I was like, see, that's the kind of word I need for fate, right? Instead of just fate, gravitas. Great, it's not the same thing as fate, so I can't use gravitas, unfortunately, because I really love the word. Hey, there's Sam. How's it going? Took me a second to refresh refresh the chat. Anyone have an idea? An alternate word for fate or fortune to describe a character trait that reflects that. They're very commonly used words. I was trying to come up with something different. Haven't found it yet. You'll get a game design credit note. Thanks to Bobicus for the word fate, or whatever. All right, back up to cultures. Actually, let's come up with something else, too. Write that down before I forget it. Chat scripts. That's the term. Chat script notes. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, I actually looked at a couple Greek words reflecting it that were really interesting. The languages are really specific in this game, so I'm trying to avoid I guess I could maybe look up some of the root languages I use in the game and come up with a word. Like, there's no real Japanese equivalent in the game. There's kind of a Greco equivalent, so I could use one of the words that I found that has a Greek origin, but it's still like so distinctly Greek. It's like, but I could look up similar concepts too as the ones you described. That would be kind of cool. That's where I kept that other set of notes. So many documents with different notes in them. I'm like, that's what I'm trying to get them all together. Scroll that down. All right, so next we're on to the Rubari. So like the Rubari language, so let's see. Standing. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So you just find how it's used, yeah. And that's, like I said, when it comes to my own fate or fortune, whatever I'm going to call it, trait, that was my biggest challenge. And that's the thing I know Neil and several other players suggested. Well, we have this trait, these points that let us do something. If you want to have a game that has a social engine as well, which I do, even if it's very vague right now, that should play into the social engine. And that's kind of what I'm trying to pull everything together with. Well, one of the biggest challenges too is once you start, as you already said, it's worrying about a meta component when you start introducing those engines, those kinds of social or any engine in a game, but really making it clear like how this can be used and how it's important. Because all the early RPGs, oh, charisma, oh well, that's my dump stat. I'm not gonna put anything in charisma because I'll just kill everything I meet, right? I mean, part of that's the style of gaming and the types of players and the types of game master. But there still is, in many games, even in a lot of modern D&D games where there's heavy role-playing, there's no real social engine. And I'm saying that modern D&D games with a lot of role-playing based on the group. Not that the game itself will facilitate it, but there's no engine to facilitate it. And that's part of what I'm trying to introduce here as well. Like how can I reflect this in how the game works without creating whole new systems that bog it down? Because if the character sheet, which I ended up finishing off last week, is actually quite minimal. Oh, I figure I'll share my cheat sheet that I made too. I was kind of proud of this cheat sheet. Saturday night, Friday night I worked on it. I was actually going to stream it, then I lost power. I was like, I'm working on this. Let me just pop on a pop-up stream. I lost power for about 2 hours. A storm come through. Let me share this. Let's see. Right. Destiny. Destiny's a good one. That's a really good one. All right. What do you think about Destiny? That's cool. So actually, I pulled up a thesaurus of synonyms to fate. I don't think Destiny was on there, or I kind of My eyes glazed over. Right, so that's how I have several sliding scale type stats in this game. Your corruption, your essence, which are intertwined, your magic points, it's kind of a pool as well. Your willpower is also functions like that. I think I include willpower. But let's see. So weird. Those little show windows, sometimes it won't. Let's come up in Acrobat. I mean, it can work. Again, I think all those systems, so that's the discussion we've had about some systems that have elements like that in it. Like, at what point does that actually detract from the role playing? Does the role playing help you facilitate you into getting those points? At what point is it not role playing but point collecting? And again, I've talked about those kinds of systems among my gaming group friends, if nowhere else. Let me shut down Acrobat. I think that was part of it. Right. Could it be a game objective? That could be a possibility too. There we go. Yeah, so here's the quick start sheet that I made up over the weekend. It was pretty satisfying thing to build. Pulled out my Magic Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator skills. And basically get you making a character in 15 to 20 minutes. And I wanted a game that where the depth should come into the possible outcomes of your choices. Not that you have so many choices that it takes you hours and hours to make a character. Well, anyway, back to my... Well, it's interesting seeing you work on that system because it's, like I said, on one hand, I'm kind of old school in that my idea of a game is a game master constructing the environment and scenario and players having to navigate this either through the mechanics of the game or through their own thinking. Whereas something like Fate changes the dynamic or the very nature of how these games are assembled. And I think it's cool. I don't have an issue with it. I think it's just a different way of looking at it. But right, then you start getting into the idea itself as a game object, and that's an interesting point. Destiny's definitely in the running there, Lisanne. For a name. I'll keep looking. There was one I found that had a Greek origin. And since I do have a Greco culture, Greco-ish culture, I might take it. Let's see. Handwriting on the wall. That would be a weird one. That's one of your character traits, handwriting on the wall. Maybe for underground or something like that. Oh, you know what? That word does not, yeah, because that word means something else, but our modern usage of it is rather specific. So I'm wondering if there are any board games that you could look at and borrow some mechanical ideas from. Because I could totally see that. I mean, I've seen some board games that simulate economic environments and that simulate social environments where you might be able to modify something. It's a cool idea. But again, it starts to then play with the very idea of how the role playing game functions. All right, let me get back to writing up my cultures here. Next to the Rubari. Swamps, places, gardens, and gardens. Do we need the word therefore anymore? Therefore the Rubari. Sounds like I'm writing something for one of my classes. Well, because I kind of am. So I think the interesting thing about these concepts that you're talking about is what are the consequences for failure in terms of the greater scheme of the game. And maybe Fate has that built into it, and I'm just not aware of it. But I'm curious to know how that would affect the game. I can see that. Trying to see if Nightbot. Nightbot hasn't popped up again. Waiting to see if it's reactivated. Yeah, it's an interesting system. It'll definitely take some playing around with too, and different groups might respond really differently to having that kind of social system in play. Every player cards reincarnation. Yeah, exactly. Just accept this bear. Why is the Lord a bear? He's Lord Barrington. Just accept. Just accept he's a bear. But does it transcend system and environment? Does Lord Barrington take on a different countenance in different games? It's always weird working on a game at this level and realizing, wow, like in a couple weeks or months or whatever, I'll be doing another pass and I'll probably be changing so much of this again. But that's writing and that's design. Was a bad idea that the players have to oppose. Actually, isn't that every role playing game though? Guys, come on, this is a great idea. Your characters are gonna love it. You as players are gonna love it. They don't love it. They do and they don't. I can see this discussion of the casts of the society being a pop-out text. I haven't even gotten to the layout component of this. Fortunately, I can do that myself. That's something I am skilled in. Design and layout. Not to say that people wouldn't do it better if I pop that out there. Oh, there's Nightbot. Decided to finally appear. I'm Vanguard, wherever. Has to become a thing at local cons. Did it become a thing at local cons? It becomes a chant heard in the gaming halls throughout North Jersey. For now, I'll just shrink that one down. Make it slightly smaller to indicate that I will later put this in another text. Text box. Let's see. So I made a bunch of 1-point gifts because there were people who ended up having like 1 point left over and didn't know what to do with it. But now that I'm giving away, I mean, I guess I could give it as a free gift. I didn't want to give anything that was a minimum of, that they pay nothing for. But I guess if it's balanced out among the different cultures, it really doesn't matter. So now I'm running into, there's too many gifts that are too low in cost. I think I'll be doing that. I think I will maybe be altering that. That's weird, because if I set it up that the gift doesn't cost anything with that cultural bonus, that could very much unbalance certain cultures. And I might end up with extra gifts. So they're not assigned. There are the gifts are all free floating. Anybody can take any gift, but certain cultures get gifts at a little bit less of a cost. Cat. At a little bit lower cost. So yeah, I'm trying to kind of space them out depending on what they cost and who would have access to it. And I don't want to, make everybody who's Ribari has these gifts. Actually, I'm on the. So, like the Fror, for example, they tend to culturally excel at certain gifts. Beast Companion, Enhanced Resistance, Nature Resistance, Nature Affinity, the Iron Man Path, Wild Fury, etc. But they don't have to take it. It's not assigned. And I even have a little note up here. It's tempting, like in D&D, there are so many elven archers, right? He's tempted to make a Fror barbarian because they're mountain people, they're big, they're tougher, so it kind of makes sense. Oh, well, we can make like a barbarian or a druid type character, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, and I try to kind of emphasize that. We'll see how that works. Again, I've played it really kind of with very specific groups so far, mostly people I know, so I kind of know how they're going to think in terms of character creation, and most of them have not really been like min-maxing or anything. But I have to just assume that when this game goes out to other people, they're going to say, oh, if I get that free gift and I like that free gift, I'll play this ethnicity, play this culture. And I think that's natural too. It's not a problem, it's just I'm trying to decide how to balance this out with playability. I mean, very annoying, cat. There's a dog down there. You don't want to step on a dog accidentally. He fell on the dog the other night. The dog was very upset. They get along fine, but the dog did not like being fallen upon by a heavy cat. And the other option is to give him some more of the battle style gifts. Sorry about that. Microphone just took a tumble. Then I feel like if I say, right, and that's, yeah, exactly. Some of the feat, the way that feats were distributed did actually, like, I even find that now in 5th ed to some degree, like a bard can be a better healer than a cleric, which is antithetical to how I think of bards. I mean, part of that is because of playing the early editions of the game, right? But part of it's also just like, what is a bard? A bard's an entertainer. So, like, why are you all of a sudden group healing? And not even like, oh, you have to play a song. You just have this ability to group heal or whatever. You know, that's a very generalized and probably ill thought out concept. A description of the concept, but that's what I'm trying to avoid too. Is I'm trying to avoid the redundancy. that's definitely been in my brain with creating these gifts, and even some of the battle style gifts. I had to go back through and revise them because I realized, oh, that basically does what this other ability said it would do. And you can buy gifts later. You can develop the character and buy certain gifts. Some are innate, which you have to start with character. You know, sort of character creation. Really? And others are things that you can purchase later on. Like the battle style gifts, I assume you can learn them, right? I mean, you could learn how to fight a certain way after a period of time, even if you're not experienced in it. I know, saying you know that firsthand, being a fencer, and anyone else who does. I don't know if any of my other fighters. No, Andy's got some fighting skills. You know, these are all things you can learn. You don't have to be born with them. African ISI. Really? By the way, he's not vicious. That's how he talks. Are you getting hungry? Is this your problem? They've been very weird today. Normally, they've been really kind of... Must be something in the air. The animals have been acting a little strange today. More than the usual strange of their day-to-day personalities, which is pretty strange anyway. They're being annoying. Yeah. The dog nose appearing in the middle of the stream. Okay, I don't think they're going to get that gift. They're not going to get Item of Power. That'll be for the Varinka, the deranged occultists, the Lovecraftian, the Whately-like culture, if we're going to call them that. Not quite that. You know, I guess they kind of are. So not quite that degenerate, but I guess they kind of are. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's also exactly that's also a misunderstanding of and a misuse of the common modern term of bard, and that's where the later versions of D&D definitely get it wrong, and pop culture definitely gets it wrong. That a bard and a minstrel are not necessarily the same thing, and in different cultures, these figures serve entirely different roles. That this is kind of gets back to my Wednesday night chat where I talk about cultures and like why we have certain conceptions of game races and classes and culture, and how a lot of it just doesn't. Butler, will you stop? How a lot of it just doesn't really stack up to the historical source. I mean, but does it have to? You know, like I've had that discussion about D&D races. You know, do they have to have the mythological analogy because D&D is its own genre at this point? I go back and forth on it. No, it doesn't because it's a game and it's its own genre. But like in this game I'm working on, I want there to be some kind of rooted analogy that makes sense in the game world and can translate to our own real world research. I think the answer might be to raise that to a 2 instead of a 1 cost. And I also have to change it in every other document. That's the problem with juggling 3 documents, multiple documents. I'd even like to have more gifts. I took a bunch out early on. I had some other really strange ones. It just got. I mean, again, it's a fantasy game, so I'm fine with things being weird. But like I mentioned, I had one that was shape shifting, and another one that infuse you with some divine power of one of the gods of the land. Not quite a cleric, but more like a logo in the traditional sense of the word. More like a where we get the angelos, where we get that term from, where we get this sense that you're like this almost this avatar. But then it just got so complicated. I was like, this is its own system. This is not first chapter material here. This is going to be this whole other thing. Did I really do that again? I think I did. Is that balance of limiting but not limiting players. That's always what I find difficult when constructing these things is you don't want to limit the possibilities, but sometimes you have to restrict choices to start so that there's someplace else to go in the game. Magic. No! Guess I could give the Masterworker too. Station. And at what point do these limitations you place early on, things like gifts, even if it's just benefits to taking them, kind of force an image of a particular culture that is not necessarily accurate? If we look at real world stereotypes, ethnic stereotypes, they usually come with things like, well, this type of person's always good at this. Which we know is ridiculous. A lot of that has to do with cultural upbringing, which can be applied across the board, but it certainly does not indicate any kind of genetic predisposition to something, and that's unfortunately how we often look at things. The following gifts. But yeah, that's an interesting point too about the bards. This is a very skill-driven game too. So what should really define the characters are the skills they take. In some cases, the gifts will augment skills or whatever. It's one of those things where I really want characters to initially be very variable in what they do, even within the same culture or the same whatever. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I figured each will have a possible benefit on one of 6 gifts. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they have 7. They're the only one that has 7. They also have 7. 3, 4, 5, 6. This game writing thing is difficult. Whose idea was this? Why would anybody do this to themselves? Well, and that's another thing. So that's something, and I thought part of the point of Fate 2 was to take some of the game mastering work distribution and help the players facilitate this. So if you're adding more on for the GM to work with in that system, that might be a problem. But you at least have core ideas, and you can always put them out there and test them and then see what happens. There's literally no way to know how any of this, including all the stuff I'm sitting here writing, is going to work until I throw it out to the next playtest group. Then I might sit there going, well, that was pretty dumb. Why did I have them do that? This doesn't work. I'm pretty satisfied with them. I don't want the same social gifts appearing. So I think right now each culture, each battle style is given to a culture. Oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'll give them heir to a legacy instead. And that more fits this particular culture. I also have to remember I'm not actually limiting anybody from taking anything. It's just a slight edge. If you play this culture, you might end up with this as a bonus. So I'm kind of getting in the mindset, well, I don't want everybody to have that. Well, they're not going to have that. One, two, three, four, five. All right, friends. I think I'm going to call it and log off for a bit and do a few things. As always, thanks for tuning in to the chat for today. It's been great talking to everybody. Yep, have a good one. Good luck on continuing your work. And not only is it great chatting and catching up, I'm seeing some new folks pop in, which is absolutely great. So I'll give my end of thanks for suffering through me while I try to get Nightbot in order. For as creepy as this whole thing is. So yeah, thanks for tuning in to From the Tomes. And again, if you are watching this on Twitch, obviously if you could hit a subscribe on the channel or follow on the channel, that'd be great. And then if you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to check out our live chats on Twitch TV and vice versa. If you're on Twitch now, jump on over to YouTube. Sign up. We're over at Fox and Board Games. There's a lot of new stuff coming, which is going to be cool. It's brand new company, brand new website. And I've already got talks in with several other emerging designers. See you later, listen. Emerging designers who will be hopefully bringing games to that. Social media, Fox and Board Games. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Have a great day. See y'all later. Thank you.